Hello, everybody, and welcome to Norm, the Cheers podcast that isn't quite. It's me, I'm Mike, that's Tookie, that's Dave. We are very happy to be here and feeling unbelievably old as we watch this week's episode, season 4, episode 19, Dark Imagining. I enjoyed it, but oh my God, do I wish I had not gone on the IMDb for this page. Woo!
Really?
That was a rough deep dive. Well, like the first thing in this week's episode, the bulk of it is about Sam feeling his age and like having to come to grips with where he is in life. And he gets a hernia playing racquetball with Woody, and he's dealing with that. And oh, it's hard. And then and when you look up the IMDb page, apparently when they filmed this, it was Ted Danson's 38th birthday.
38? That's it?
38. And when you realize that you are 10 years older than this character coming to grips with his mortality, boy, what a day that is. Woo!
I remember a very specific day in 2007 attending a Red Sox game and watching Mike Lowell come up to bat, then third baseman. And you know the jumbotron showed his headshot. He was all salt and peppery, and I was like, "Man, that's an old ball player." And his birthday was listed under his name, and he was exactly like 6 weeks younger than I was at that moment.
Yeah. If you're a sports fan, yeah, it really skews your thoughts about age. Because there's that moment where suddenly all these people who you thought of as great athletes and adults are your age, and that's weird. And then people younger than you are professional athletes, and that's weirder. And then suddenly people your age are grizzled veterans, and that hurts. And then you wake up and there are no athletes your age anymore. Like you've got to watch pro bowling to find someone who's still a pro athlete and your age. And that's quite a day, my friend.
Now we've hit the point too where like people our age get hired to be coaches and they're not wonderkins.
No,
it's just like, oh, he's on his third job. He's a veteran coach.
When someone our age gets his first job now, he's put in his time.
Yeah.
He's due. Yeah, there's no like, hey, this guy, wow. I guess they thought he was ready early. Nope. That guy got in line and did everything he had to do.
That guy is neither a late nor early bloomer. He's just a bloomer.
He's in bloom. He's in bloom. And we're like 2 years away from if a guy gets his first job at our age, like, wow. It's like, you know, they denied him a long time.
Yeah, he hung with it.
Yeah, he never gave up. We're 2 years away from never giving up. So it was quite an episode of Cheers this week. Look at the sympathy in Tookie's eyes. Tookie's got so much like to deal with in life right now, and she's still looking at us like, "Oh wow, oh you guys."
I think she's just going through the mental Rolodex of like, when these two people die in the next 6 months, like, who am I going to get to fill these boxes?
Right? I got to finish out at least season 5.
Oh, don't. This is stressful.
You got the will, Dave?
We'd still, I do not have the will. We can't find a lawyer we like.
Oh, I'll hook you up with my our will lawyer. He was really good. Took care of everything very simply, very inexpensively.
That would be awesome.
Got to have the will. You got to have the will. Once you have kids, you got to have the will. You can't trust that everything's going to be cool.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
That's important. Can't procreate without the will.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then you start looking at like the third choice for who takes care of your kid when you're gone, and you're like, boy, I hope it doesn't get to that. That's a rough moment. I actually said to the lawyer, I'm like, can we put them in pencil, or does this have to be ink? Like, can we explore a few more options?
We asked Molly about it, and she was like, "Well, they have a pool." I was like, "All right,
Yeah, good
glad
call.
glad your priorities are in order." I check my brake lines every day now.
There are worse arguments for where to go. You never know exactly how it's going to turn out.
Don't mind me. I'm just processing.
It's a
Yep.
lot.
Yep, this is your future, Tookie.
Okay.
If you do decide to have more, if you do decide to make people, you got to think about all this stuff. You got to think about it all. It's not fun.
I don't like it.
You think we do? There was
I
no
know.
part of me that liked it. You got to do it. It's like
Okay.
Pilates. You got to do it. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
good during,
No.
but it's long-term good.
Wait, so I have to do Pilates now?
Yes, you do.
Oh God.
I'm sorry.
luck.
I thought somebody told you.
Oh God. I like my
Oh.
core soft. I'm like one of those guys that wave in front of car washes.
Okay, but Sam didn't do his Pilates, and now look.
Great point.
He did
Great
it, and that's where the hernia comes from. Yep, there you go. All right, Dave, what was going on when Sam got that hernia in the world?
This premiered on February 20th, 1986. The following day, Friday the 21st, Ryan White returned to school, to high school in Indiana. It was sadly not he was only back at school, I think, for that day. Faced another court order to block him, and then later on in the school year returned full time and finished out his high school career. Ryan White, is kind of an inadvertent AIDS activist. It contracted AIDS as a hemophiliac through a blood transfusion, and became the domestic face of AIDS education in this country for a lot of people. Just an interesting. Just a really amazing story of a young person who, didn't ask for the notoriety that was thrust upon him, but in all the research I could find, like really handled it pretty spectacularly gracefully, and brought a lot of different factions into AIDS awareness and education in the late '90s, including and not limited to the Reagans. Ronald Reagan was notoriously dismissive of the disease in the early 80s, and by 1989 he was Ryan White was attending Oscar parties with the Reagans and getting had Nancy's ear and stuff. So a pretty incredible human being, Ryan White.
We let off with talk of our last wills and testament, and thought it wouldn't get sadder. And Dave said, "Challenge accepted." How do we kick off this sitcom discourse? Perfectly.
I will say this moment in American history I'm fired up. I'm behind Ryan White as he pushes to return to high school, and is thankfully ultimately successful in that, and really does have a pretty normal, or at least as normal as he could have given his incredible celebrity at the time, high school experience, which is something he kept articulating. That's what I want. I want this. I want this. I want this. And he fought for it and got it. And it's a pretty good model for a lot of, for an inclusionary mindset that I think we would do well to remember.
Yes. Well put. Well said. Tookie, can you tell us about this week's Cold Open without making me want to cry?
I can, I think. I got to think about it. Does a 4-part harmony upset you?
Depends what they're singing about.
Okay, fair. All right, so we enter into the bar. A barbershop quartet happens to stroll in, and they're, rambling amongst themselves. Oh, blah blah blah. It was your fault that we lost the contest. It was not my fault. Oh, we'll find out. So one of them hits a little harmonica note, and they begin to sing a song, and one points out, oh, there it is. That's the note that costs us the championship. And the guy who was singing said, he slams down his hat and he goes, well, that remark just cost you a base, right? And he storms off. And they're all rattling again, just like, oh, wait a minute, Jim. Oh, now we got to find ourselves another base. And the guy with the white hair turns to Woody, who's behind the bar, and he says, 3 beers, please. And Woody said, I love barbershop quartets. You mind if I ask you a little request? And they're thinking, oh, it's a song, right? Oh, yeah. No, not at all. And Woody says, could you give me a little trim around the ears later? Of course, eye rolls ensue. And you see Norm behind the guys, the quartet, the trio now, picking up the hat that the former bass singer slammed on the floor. And he says to the guys, excuse me, fellas, I couldn't help but to overhear what happened. It's always been a lifelong dream of mine to sing in a barbershop quartet. I wonder if you'd give me a try. And the guys were like, yeah, why not? All right, well, let's sing Good Night Lady. So hit the little mini harmonica, and that gesture looks like something else when I do it. But they hit the little mini harmonica.
I've hit the mini harmonica once or twice in my day.
You know what I'm saying? As long as you're not hitting the harmonica and driving, just do what you got to do. Whatever relaxes you. Yeah.
I know. We're a little past April, guys. Sorry.
Harmonicas are legal in Massachusetts. It's fine.
They are. They are. So they hit a little note and they sing "Good Night, Ladies." Da, 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 da. And that's how it goes.
That's not at all how it goes.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. That's just that was just so aggressively not the tune. I'm sorry.
I know you're on a time crunch. I'm trying to help you out.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to help you out.
No, I hear you. The correct tune is much more time consuming.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
So they sing, and Norm seemingly does a great job. His harmony seems to blend right in with the other four, and the guys are like, hey, yeah, that was fantastic. Looks like we've got ourselves a new bass. And Norm's like, oh, no, I can't. I'm flattered, but I don't think so. And one of them says, well, but you said it was your lifelong dream to sing in a barbershop quartet. And Norm says, well, it was, but now I've done it. Thanks for the memories. Roll credit.
One of my favorite sitcom tropes of all time is when somebody can do something, just finding some way to highlight it. It's like a Norm saying I can handle the bass part in a barbershop quartet. Great, we'll craft something with the thinnest of premises to allow you to do that, to fill up a 3 minutes on TV. I always love that.
Question, and I don't know if either of you found this because I did not. Was that George Wendt singing?
I thought it was.
I thought so.
Because it would be a good bit and very easy for him to just mouth that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why I thought it was him singing. The part he was singing, which it was pretty clear, he was singing the bass part, or was supposed to be singing the bass. He cut out about a beat earlier than the rest of the singers. And George Wendt's mouth stopped moving if he was lip syncing it, he was lip syncing the mistake that the singer made perfectly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't want to say that.
Good catch.
I don't want to say that he couldn't have done that, but it seems more likely that he just sang it and cut out before the other three.
Excellent. Great catch. Yeah, I was not sure. I was hoping he was, but very nice. All right. Let's delve into the bulk of this episode. We got an A story and a B story. The B story, very small, but kind of fun. I enjoyed it. Cliff is coming in with another vegetable that looks like a celebrity. This week's celebrity, June Lockhart of Leave It to Beaver fame. Poor little out for Tony Dow. We just lost him. And so he's showing everybody the turnip, and he actually catches it himself. Is starting to feel weird to anybody else? And yeah, everyone is very worried about Cliff. Frasier says something to Cliff. Cliff asks if he can speak to Frasier for a little while on his way back to the office, and he does, and talks about I breastfed much longer than most children did, which was before that was an interesting 21st century controversy, how long one should breastfeed. But and then Cliff is doing better later on, and Frasier is very proud of it. Everyone's noting it. Cliff comes in furious because Frasier has given him a bill for his services. 7 hours of intensive psychotherapy, $750, which, at the time probably seemed incredibly expensive and now seems pretty reasonable. Mm-hmm. And they fight, and then he brings out a piece of corn that looks like Meryl Streep. And I enjoyed it. It was good to have Frasier there and doing a little bit. And it was just the right amount of a B story in an A story that was taking up the majority of the episode this week.
Nice reminder, too, that how long Meryl Streep has been part of our national day-to-day conversation. That woman, I mean, we know she's an icon, but that's unbelievable.
Yeah. Eternal. Mm-hmm. I mean, she really broke in, what year was Kramer versus Kramer? She did The Deer Hunter, and she did Kramer versus Kramer, and that was when she started to really become Meryl Streep. And I want to say that was 78, 79?
Yeah.
Okay. Kramer versus Kramer, a beautiful movie that makes me very, very sad to rewatch. Have you ever seen Kramer versus Kramer?
I know of it.
Really, really good movie. With some dated stuff. We actually were pre-podcast. We were talking about Tootsie, and now we're talking Kramer versus Kramer. We're going through the whole Hoffman oeuvre. We're talking Marathon Man, just a lot of stuff there. And I think more of Kramer versus Kramer works than doesn't work. There's a lot of great stuff in there, and one of the great child performances ever committed to celluloid. Really incredible child performance by the kid who plays his son in that movie. Unbelievable.
Would you say Kramer versus Kramer was the Marriage Story of its day?
No, this is good. I thought Marriage Story sucked. I hated Marriage Story. I hated it.
Okay, noted.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I hated that movie. What? Let's get everybody an Oscar script. It was really, I did not enjoy it. I hated it. I really hated it. And I haven't spent too much time thinking about it since I first saw it and hated it. I'm trying not to spend too much more of my mental energy on things that I really did not like. If enough people had talked to me about it afterwards and said, I loved it and you should give it another try, I would go in and try to give it a second shot. And honestly, nobody that I really trust has been like, oh, I love Marriage Story. You got to give it another shot. So if you were saying that, I will give it a shot. But I don't think you were saying that.
I'm not. I'm just asking.
Yeah,
because that was touted as like a powerful story about the trials and tribulations of married life.
It was. I mean, it was a very kitchen sink drama, but it starts with them separating, and she's not in a lot of the movie. She doesn't come in for a while, so it does deal a lot with the dynamics of a marriage at that time in the 70s and how that was changing, and what a woman's role was thought to be at that time, and what a man's role was thought to be at that time. But most of that movie is about a guy figuring out how to be an actual parent, and not just the guy who comes home at the end of the day with the paycheck. So which is very different from Marriage Story, which I thought tried very hard to say, like, oh, both of these people are wonderful parents. And then, what's not natural is marriage. It felt that way to me. It felt like a screenwriter and a director who had a lot of opinions about marriage and a lot of opinions about lawyers and a lot of opinions about how divorce works in this country. I thought it was very different.
Okay.
My opinion. Anyway, So the A story. Sam comes in with his much younger girlfriend, Bonnie, which is just a go-to young person name in 1986. They're getting ready to go out. Sam is saying some very dated things, which honestly, I don't think even a 38-year-old at that time would sound quite that dated. Like, especially a guy who's not married, doesn't have kids, is still out there all the time. Like going, John Cougar Millen something. It's like, hey, wait a minute. That guy was already like a star for a few years at that point. Like, give me a break. Like, he was putting out hits when you were still in your early 30s. Stop giving me this. But anyway, and then he's it's coming out that he's out of touch. And then there is a weird moment I would like a judgment call on, where Bonnie is saying, "So I'll see you on Saturday, Woody," because they're going to get together and play racquetball. And I'm like, hey, did Woody ask out Bonnie on a date? Like when Sam is already out on a date with Bonnie? Like, I would not schedule something like that with the woman a friend of mine is now dating. That feels very weird and out of character for Woody Boyd.
I don't think bro code existed in explicit terms at that time.
Mayhaps, but it still made me uncomfortable. I was like, you don't do that. I don't think you did that in the 80s or 70s or 60s. And certainly not today.
Oh, we can't speak about the 60s. Our parents' generation there was a lot of drugs.
There was a lot. Yeah. I mean, at Woodstock, I imagine some people invited some other person's girlfriend to play racquetball, and it was all good.
Our parents' generation dealt with a lot of drugs and a lot of lead. Like there was a lot of. I stopped asking questions after I looked at some of the numbers of lead poisoning back in the day.
Yep, they were dodging bullets just on their own paint. I hear you. So Sam is saying, "Oh, I didn't know you play racquetball." "Oh, yeah, I play a little bit." "Oh, how come you never wanted to play with me?" "Because I'm a professional athlete." "No, it's because it's because you're a professional athlete." Comes out that Woody did not want to play because Sam is older than him. And Sam is mad about that and says, "Well, why don't we go play right now?" And they go and play. Sam is victorious. He hurts himself. He's coming back in limping, but playing it off like it's no big deal and talking about his great victory there. And then he says, "All right, you know what? I'm going to go skiing. I feel so alive and young. I want to be up at Sugarloaf." And then there is a great moment where he is exiting and having to carry his skis up the staircase. And I enjoyed that very much. That is in my running for joke of the week. But I don't think it's the winner. In the next scene, we come back from commercial. Diane is saying that she's called all the hotels in Sugarloaf, and there is no Sam Malone. There's also neither of his aliases, which are two of the greatest aliases ever, and I can't believe I've never used them when checking in anywhere. Lance Mannion and Honey Boy Wilson.
Honey Boy Wilson is maybe my favorite combination of letters that I've ever heard.
It's amazing. Just amazing. I love it. I don't know how they came up with those names, but those are, to me, the two perfect names.
I thought nothing could get better than like Cool Papa Bell, and like Honey Boy Wilson is the only collection of letters I've heard that comes even within a 30-yard pass of that name.
There are two nurses there at Cheers talking about a patient who is just relentlessly fresh and handsy. And she says, "Oh my God, it's Sam." And then she says, "No, it's not. Is it a Sam Malone?" "No, it's not." Apparently there were no HIPAA laws in 1986. I love that. No, it's not Sam Malone. Okay. His name's Lance Mannion. And that was my joke of the week. Yeah, I loved it. Slams the tray down, has to go to Boston Mercy Hospital. Just fantastic. Goes in. Sam is hitting on all the nurses, trying to hide the fact that he has a hernia. She is talking about how there's nothing unnatural about aging. A doctor comes in, Dr. Stevie, who she used to tutor, and now it makes Diane feel old. And everyone's feeling old. Sam apparently has the surgery and then goes back to the bar. The first time I watched it, I thought he had just not gotten the surgery and gone back with the hernia. Second time I realized he did get the surgery and just did not stay to heal as long as he was supposed to. Goes back in, is trying to show how young and virile he is. He carries a case of beer over. Woody says, "Way to go, Mayday," smacks him on the butt, and I guess stitches pop out, and he desperately wants to go back to the hospital. They go back in, and now he's feeling very, very old. Woody comes back in a beautiful performance, comes back in weeping openly with Carla because he feels so bad and offers to give him a hernia of his own to replace his. It's really delightful. Carla gives him a truss, which I had to look up. Don't Google it. And yeah. And then it's a joke gift. You're still young. And then, Diane comes back in, is telling him he's much sexier now. And suddenly he's up for a little romance. And Shelley Long is very good there. A man who wants sex is not going to get it. Very nice moment between the two of them. She leaves. His new roommate comes in, who's about the same age. They're talking about how virile and studly they still are, and how many women they get. And then a young girl comes in to visit his roommate, and Sam hits on her. And the roommate says, "Sam, that's my daughter. Bye, Mr. Malone," or "Bye, sir." Yeah, and they leave. And Sam is left sadly looking out the Rain Street window as we go to credits. If it's raining out, it's going to be a Rain Street window before we go to credits. And that was this week's episode, and I feel ancient. How do you guys feel?
I feel bad for. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was gonna say I the second time I watched it, I felt like I connected the character of Sam Malone to the character of Fonzie, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. Like, you have this sort of 70s, Ubermensch kind of this kind of unstoppable force of masculinity, who could like the show crumbled around him because he could never sort of really change. And then as we go into the 80s, we get this new sort of version of the cool Lothario, who is starting to be held up as a bit of a buffoon, which I was like, oh, that's kind of a neat, just a neat reminder that maybe we're slowly moving forward as a culture, starting to understand that hey, these characters that we sometimes hold up, that's not grace. That's not what grace looks like.
Yeah. Tookie, you were feeling bad for someone?
The daughter who was getting hit on.
Oh.
Yeah. Going to visit Dad in the hospital, and the dude in the dark socks is hitting on you.
Yeah.
Man, does anything age you more than walking around in underwear and black socks? Just something about the black socks, man. Whew. You look 80. It doesn't matter how old you actually are. You are an 80-year-old man, by God.
She eviscerates him with that "sir" too. It's it's
on purpose.
Blade.
It's on purpose. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's so well done.
Yeah. She knows what she's doing. That was a poison tipped dart right there. Fired right at the heart. It was rough. All right, I did my joke of the week. Tookie, what's your joke of the week this week?
Oh, I didn't write it down exactly, and I regret it, but you did mention it before. Diane's line about a man who enjoys sex but isn't going to get it.
Ah, yes. Who isn't going to get it? Yeah, she's beaming with this big smile on her face. Yeah. Really well delivered line.
Yes.
Yep. Dave, your joke of the week.
I'm going to go with I loved the Woody Sam kind of contest. I loved how they shot it as they're hashing out the details of the racquetball. I love that they gave Woody some space to kind of play it as I'm a kid, but I also know what I'm doing, and I like that this is a little bit of I'm looking forward to sort of challenging this guy who's always lording things over me. and then culminating it with a leap over the bar, which then Sam realizes he can't do. And the look, isn't that someone famous? And forcing everyone to turn around as he like scrambles inelegantly over the bar and like does like the the perfect landing as they turn around. That was it made me laugh every single time. I loved it. It was such a great Ted Danson moment of like wrestling coolness out of the fires of flop sweat.
Well said. All right, your 80s thing of the week, Dave.
How about staying in the hospital for a week to recover from a hernia? Like, I mean, I know, like this was not a laparoscopic procedure or whatever, but like a week, to get better. Like, wow, how exciting! What a functional system we must have had.
Oof, man, pining for the healthcare of the 80s. No one in the 80s would have believed it. Yeah. All right. My 80s thing of the week. I was tempted by the musicians, but that's too obvious, I thought. So my 80s thing of the week is nurses' uniforms. This was the last gasp of the classic nurse hospital whites, because it was in the 90s that they shifted over, and now all nurses just wear scrubs, and you don't see that. But I do remember, like, my mom was a nurse when I was young, and she had the hat thing and the white outfit, and that was still a thing through the 80s. And then shifting in the 90s. And there's even an episode of ER, I remember, where there's a senior nurse who's called to float into the ER, and she's wearing the white uniform. And this is like 95-ish. And the nurse says, oh, wow, I don't think I've seen, like the white uniform in a long time. She's like, this is the uniform I've worn for 30 years. I'm not changing. And I was like, all right, respect. Yeah, so the nurse's uniform. Tookie, your 80s things.
Okay. Not a ton this week, but I noticed in a lot of the extras this week, so many types of like signature 80s eyewear glasses, right? Like you had some like guys with like the thin gold rim glasses, some thick Coke bottle lens glasses. I was noticing, and like the aviator shaped glasses. So I was noticing a lot of glasses shapes in the backgrounds that stood out to me.
I do feel like the 80s we switched a lot to like, because I got glasses in the 80s when I was a child, and I definitely had metal frames for the longest time. And Dave, I feel like when I knew you in the 90s, you had the metal frames, and then like now nobody I know wears metal frames anymore. It's all the solid frames,
like polycarbonate.
Yeah, that's a generational shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
So strong agreement. Very 80s thing. Yep.
Yeah. That really leapt out at me. The ubiquity of the phrase "boldly going where no man has gone before" when Norm says that line at one point, and then the threat of nuclear war, because that was still heavy on people's mind. Norm mentioning that Boston Mercy Hospital, and I feel like XYZ Mercy was a tropey name in the 80s for hospitals in like the 80s and a pocket of the 90s. Checking into a hospital under an assumed name. Right?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Because you just have to assume he must be paying cash if his insurance would have his name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which you could not do anymore.
No. Dr. Steve, that mullet, that was a sweet mullet.
That was
and yeah.
Strong mullet game.
And it might just be a TV thing because, like, obviously I didn't visit people in the hospital in the 80s, but the fact that you could have company just pop in and out in your hospital room at a point in the 80s because Woody and Carla went and visited Sam and they just rolled in and it wasn't a thing.
Is that not a thing? I mean, pre-COVID, I feel like that was still a thing. As someone who had to visit family quite a bit in the hospital, I feel like it was never terribly strict about the visiting hours. You could just basically show up at reasonable times and hang out. Yeah.
Right. But did you ever have to like pre-register, put your name down on a list or anything?
Not before COVID.
Okay.
But I was also visiting hospitals in Rhode Island, which is kind of the Wild West of healthcare still. So, like, don't go by
Fair.
me. You could absolutely be correct about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of our hospitals are staffed by field surgeons from World War One.
Yeah. But it's good. You know what I mean? They don't like waste. They don't waste gloves. It's like, all right, look, there's blood on here. There's going to be more blood on here. Why replace them?
Yeah, just bite
The
on
fact
this.
that I believe you, the fact that I'm fully on board with this concept, I don't know. Does it say more about me or Rhode Island?
Rhode Island.
Okay.
Rhode Island. All right, Tookie, how white was this week's episode?
Not that white.
All right.
We've had an uptick. We've had an uptick. I did the count. Okay, so in the cold open, we had a black man who entered when Norm was making his request to join the quartet, and a black man and black woman sitting to the right side of the bar of Woody. And then, so that's three. Scene one, a black woman in the upper right booth with two repeat extras. And when I saw the repeat extras, I was like, oh, shoot. But we've got hope. Scene two, an Asian woman and a black woman sitting by Tecumseh, the portrait. Or not Tecumseh, I'm sorry, Geronimo, by the Geronimo portrait. A man who I interpreted to possibly be Latino passed by Sam's office, and then three more repeat extras from the prior scene. Scene three, an Asian man and a black woman. You had to really like look, you had to zoom in, but you could see him in the upper right booth by the stairs, an Asian man and a black woman. A black woman was behind Norm, standing behind Norm. A black man was in the phone hall. A black woman was taking a check from Diane, sitting at the table when she was handing a check to some patrons. An Asian woman at that was a repeat extra. Sorry, a black woman in the phone hall. Okay, so yes, 4 new folks, 3 repeat extras. Scene 4, it was just one who happened to be a repeat extra. They reused the same man with the salt and pepper hair who entered in the cold open to pass by behind Diane in the first hospital scene. There was a lot of scenes this week. Scene 5, 2 black women behind Cliff and Norm were repeat extras. A man who I interpreted to also be possibly Latino was talking to a black woman behind, I think Woody. I had to re-watch that. 2 patrons who I also both interpreted to be possibly Latino or of Hispanic descent were on the jukebox side of the bar behind Carla. And another Asian woman was sitting under the Geronimo portrait. So that is 4 new cast members plus 3 repeat extras. And then scene 6, one of do they still use the term orderly? Because I feel like that was the 80s term for it, an orderly, like a male nurse person, a caretaker person.
Orderly was like basically a custodian in a hospital. And male nurse was a male nurse. Yeah.
Okay. So a male nurse who was possibly Latino, wheeling in Sam's new roommate, the one person of color, and Jack Turner was the roommate's name. So all in all, 14 total people with a bonus of 12 extras. So
there you
26
go.
Count the repeated extras.
Well, that's moving in the right direction.
Yeah. But the bar was also packed.
Yeah,
it was. In this week's, hey, this looks different in high def. How obvious was the wig on the guy in the barbershop quartet who had the gray hair?
That was was he on the run from like law enforcement? Like what was what was the deal with that was amazing.
Yeah. That was, if he was, then that law enforcement was really not putting in any effort to crack that disguise. Yeah, that was just, I can only imagine at that time they said, oh, it's going to blend in, it's going to be fine. There are going to be some things that they just did not realize were going to pop up in high def later on. That was going to be a thing that people had, and they were going to go, Jesus, wig. Yeah.
I thought I thought it was going to like reveal itself to be like a joke or a plot point or something, like they were going to recognize this guy.
Nope.
You know what I recently learned about through involuntary viewings of Star Trek? Tribbles.
Ah, the trouble with tribbles.
Yeah.
It did look a bit like he had put a tribble on his head.
It did, to me. Just to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about anybody else. For anybody who goes back and watches that episode, also go get you some Paramount Plus to watch The Trouble with Tribbles and compare notes.
Tuki, I meant to recommend to you, as someone who is going through the Star Trek canon, have you ever seen Galaxy Quest?
Yes. Okay, so the first time I saw it, I'd never seen it before, but a certain someone who lives in my house who I happen to love, so he gets a pass, made me watch it one time. And then I blocked it out of my memory. So we watched it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of good in that movie. It's very fun. And Star Trek, the cast members of the original Star Trek love that movie. And they always say that's the lost Star Trek movie. But I was really struck because I watched it with Kyle this week. We just rewatched it. And I was struck by, because we just lost Nichelle Nichols.
Yeah.
Like how painfully white Galaxy Quest was for a show that was emulating a show that had a lot of diversity in it, or some diversity. I mean, with George Takei, with Nichelle Nichols, there was a Russian character. They had that. And not only was everybody white in Galaxy Quest, except for the one child actor who is now grown up. Right. Not only was it painfully white, I did not remember Tony Shalhoub playing Fred Kwan, who played Tech Sergeant Chen.
Ooh,
I was like, wait a minute, what?
That has a lot of John Wayne playing Genghis Khan energy to it.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Just a smidge.
Like, oh my goodness, yeah. So uncomfortable things, but I do have to say, overall, still very much enjoy Galaxy Quest and think it's a fun rewatch.
Is it fair to say? Is it fair to say though that we, R.I.P. Olivia Newton-John as well from this week? Is it fair to say that we got to protect George Takei at all costs?
It is, I think, fair to say. Yeah.
Okay.
We're down to 2, I believe.
Sheesh.
If I'm not mistaken, it's Shatner, who is 91, I think, and George Takei. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Protect George Takei at all costs.
At all costs.
Even if you got to throw Shatner at the bullet.
I'm
comfortable with it. 100%. All right, so where are we ranking episode 19, Dark Imaginings, in the world of season 4?
I got to put this one, I think, towards the top. Like, I maybe not like the funniest episode, but like a really useful episode for informing our understanding of Sam, and like remind, the series is going to go to some great lengths to remind us that Sam is not, that Cheers functions better when Sam isn't at the top of the food chain. When he has foibles and weaknesses, and it can be played as a little bit of like an egocentric goof. When we can see his cracks, it works better. Like I think one of the things that, for all of the I think we lose something when Rebecca joins, but there's something useful about Sam as a victim a little bit, not as a victim, but as when the jokes are on Sam. And this is a useful episode to kind of get to that place, I think.
Yeah. It's nice when we see Sam's foibles without him being completely pathetic, which happens more often during the Rebecca years. I think, season 4 and season 5 is a nice balance of Sam, who is still the coolest guy in the bar, but he is the biggest fish in a very tiny pond, and is gently realizing what the pond is and his place in it.
And a good reminder of one more thing that links he and Diane is they're not getting any younger, and if they either need to join together and begin whatever it is they're going to begin in their late 30s, or look for it with someone else. They don't really say that in this episode, but that energy is really present, I think.
Yep. I think that's a good call. Yeah. Quick shout out to Rhea Perlman in this episode. I feel like we are getting very much into the point. She's got a big episode coming up, but where it's very easy to skip over Carla, but she also has a lot of great lines and adds a lot to everything that she's a part of. Like, she really is, the salt on the steak. It's like, all right, you still have a steak, but this really improves it. And yeah, she has a bunch of good, quick little zingers this week. And so, in weeks like that, where she doesn't have a big plot point, but she's always adding to the flavor of the show, I do want to shout out Rhea Perlman. So good week, Rhea. Because I know it hurts her feelings when I don't shout her out. So I want to make sure I get that in there.
Her exit, eat it, or bite it to Diane was a masterclass in how to wring all the malevolence out of 2 syllables.
Indeed. All right. Do we have anything to plug this week, folks?
Do we? I'm not leaving my house for about 48 hours, so I want to plug that. Shout out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I got nothing to plug. I really got to start booking myself for some stuff. I let things wane. And then during COVID, I was like, I don't ever need to leave the house again. And now I'm like, oh, I should probably book some shows again. So, I got one thing coming up in a week, but I'll plug it when we're actually plugging that week. So nothing this week. Dave, anything?
If anybody's going to be at the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame on Friday, I'll be there with my fammy
Awesome trip.
Going to go see some of the donated memorabilia from my wife's aunt, who played professional baseball in the 40s.
Oh, that's tremendous.
Yeah, we're
Whoa.
We've got a meeting
That's really
lined
cool.
up with an archivist. They're going to take us through the stuff that was donated 30 years ago. I'm really excited about it.
That's
Yay.
fantastic. Oh my God. Yeah, take a ton of pictures of that, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's
That is
awesome.
so cool.
Fair
Yay.
warning. Don't forget, pastrami was a special. Don't count on it.
No, I'm just looking forward to a sandwich.
I mean, check. See, they might have it. I'm just saying, don't count on it.
Okay. All right.
All right. There you go. And for all of you, don't count on pastrami, but seek it out. And until you find your pastrami again, I'm Mike. That's Dave. That's Tookie. We'll miss you desperately. And
Am I frozen or are both of you?
You're frozen, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's you, Tookie.
That's
all right.
Tookie,
Well,
all right.
Yeah. But you know what? That's how we'll remember Tookie. We'll remember her looking just a bit contemptuously at the both of us and our thoughts about pastrami. And on that note, we'll see you next weekend.